I need to be exonerated. I need to conduct my litigations. I need to see some patents filed, some strategies pitched. I need to conduct my ecumenical mission to the faithful of the Levant. I need Belfast in competition for the cardinality. In 10 years, my university will not have been completed. It will never have been fully completed. There will be plans for a sustainable orchard, apothecary, maybe I'd like a Samolina plantation. A library will be constructed. It will be stocked with the Greeks and Romans. There will be a brauerei, distillery, a laboratory. The institution itself being secular, right? It'll be a Levantine university, not a Catholic university. This facilitates a neutral, open, flexible, adaptable ecumenism. Various sanctuaries throughout the surrounding communities. This encourages the trust and cooperation of, well, it'll all be under the protected wing of Israel. Yeah, it's going to be kosher. It will assure the respect of Russia's right to conduct trade. So with the Jews coming and going, with the Russians coming and going, and of course it being hosted on behalf of Rome, but not officially, now all eyes are on Turkey. Turkey has a reason to responsible statesmanship, custodianship, dominion, not mastery, not domination. It's a Catholic attitude, but it's a Roman method. So there'll be sanctuaries throughout the landscape. I just want my stone house to be one of learning and production and worthiness. And the students, they're less my concern. I've standardized certain things for us, and those will be in practice there, but I don't dictate policy over Rome or here. I want to go where the cowards don't. Now, after developing my legacy in honor of Charles Buckley and having consecrated the soil faithfully, now we can rally a little bit. Now we can have a little more faith in the system. Now our doctors are unimpeachable. Now there's no excuse for circumventing the Capitol to conduct business with anybody but the governor's office. This is a more serious, faithful approach to what the World Court purported to do. Now, instead of hosting an international legislation on the land, hoping nothing goes wrong, now Washington is a full-time job. It's no longer subject to the groupthink manipulation of mass media. The Senate is in session. The Senate is on holiday. Watch your back. The embassy can be any number of venues. It'll be a place with hospitality, is customary, because you're expected to wait until summoned, having convened with the senator with whom you have business. There's no need to know who our doctors are. Now they're protected. They don't need to be anonymous. It's all about systemic stopgap pass-fail accountability. Deniability is a liability. Something changes colors. I did that. Cha-ching. Uh-oh. Say never trust the government. It depends what you expect. One day you'll know. One day you'll learn, if you're meant to. You know, it doesn't make much sense saying never trust the government with Walmart conducting a colonial fascist NAFTA operation on the land. Centers for Disease Control. Now we got drug enforcement and disease control. Now we're God. That's wrong. Department of Homeland Security. There was a problem before. Like, great job fixing that. The Koch brothers don't like the CIA and the FBI. So, well, they're still here. Have you met our DEA? I mean, they're not generally to be trifled with. DEA, are these your goddamn Canadians? See my line of thinking? Like, we have a district representative here. We have the courts should probably not be so involved. We have the governor's office. Who's your daddy? Why do I have zombies having spontaneous car trouble every time I try to walk to the store? 2 o'clock in the morning, they're trying to make small talk, trying to chat me up. I can't get FEMA to like help with the disaster recovery. I got unsolicited solicitors approaching me off peak hours, like, oh, there's a white guy. Let's break down. Nah, you had to see me like grab my keys and leave the house and know where I was heading and everything. Go to the FBI field office. It's just jokes. I guess if it was important, Homeland would have called it. Go again. And now it's like, all right, you got any weapons? Like, I'm not going to keep harassing these guys. They're sanctified killers. I recognize the scent. I went to the Secret Service a number of times. Never seen a more professional operation. These guys didn't know what it was about either. You guys are penalizing us in cyberspace, leaving us with no, means or opportunity to answer to it, and I'll kick your ass. Like, I already did. You're cheaters. We have to ask ourselves not only why our enemies are invested in our downfall, but why our allies are powerless or why they lack the incentive to intervene. Roe versus Wade is repealed. Now we've got the sideshow acting like they can persecute 10-year-olds. We don't need this level of management. The 10-year-old's going to die if she doesn't get the procedure. Don't act like the church is a monster. We have our own monster. The church doesn't have to lift a finger. Just our monster delivers. The package gets where it needs to go. Our trade laws are enforced. Our human rights are represented. What more do we require from government? If you're a faithful disciple of any school of thought, what help do you need from the government otherwise? You really need another flock sending some lackey to see to the sanctity of your children on behalf of Turkey, on behalf of the secular republic of women and children. They worship the flag, the Star and Crescent. It's a religious icon. They're a secular republic. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the protection of the United Nations, let alone authority over it. See, it's allowed to lie as long as it's a bold-faced lie. As long as we can see, as long as we know to look, we can see what's really going on. And who has the authority to speak to it? Most priests, they play it ecclesiastically. They wait, record faithfully. They can't speak directly to it. The Pope can say, condoms are a sin. Don't use condoms. And you can choose to. You're going to be excommunicated for using a condom. But if something happens, see, when contraception was originally banned, but it was probably an iron diaper with a hole in it that caused tetanus. Not an excuse for Om Shinrikyo to poison an Irishman and blame Germany. This is heresy. It's an abomination. Again, whether directly participant or not, Japan acted faithfully. Maybe it was God. Certain influences manifest in unforeseen ways, but God's will be done. I reported Hawkeye Collins' suspicious natural causes to the FBI on the other side of the country, and they were just like, okay. And at that point, that would have been reasonable suspicion. It would have been perfect excuse to sit me down and have that chat, the birds and the bees. I gave the DEA in Orlando a golden egg. They gave me 1 Q. Told me not to come back. Little half-pint runt, hairless deputy asking for my ID. You have your cook-up credentials? Nanny state. When I say I am the least of my brothers, they are my brothers. I would be remiss not to kill or be killed on their behalf. We're at a communications impasse. The phone company seems to be under the impression we have some kind of business. Like we couldn't settle through Washington. Washington didn't sabotage our defense. Defense wasn't in on it. Somebody shot a plane at my job. I wasn't under orders. So, it was a bad situation anyway. I finished my day at Goodyear. I didn't see anything tens of thousands of people didn't see. Why it would matter if I saw it or not. I got my shit together. I got a gobby on the way back to my unit, courtesy Dick Cheney, as a joke. Back to my unit, I requested orders. They had none. I didn't see the commander, but they were under orders if they saw me. It was a standing policy. So, nah. Nothing to see here, move along. Your security revoked. They didn't forgive me. Otherwise, they've been like, lace up, soldier. They'd have been like, you need to report directly to the commander. I'd have been transferred to Hawaii. If they were in on it, they wouldn't have been there. There'd have been, we're not one of those units that shoots planes at people. I know what it was. I've said it in the past. I don't want some rep being like, cha-ching. Because it's already probably been. And when I try to contact the rep at where it happened, so I can find out what the hell and make sure he knows what I know, I don't need to contend with the clerk's union or whatever it is. My rep has 3 offices. I can't get a hold of him in any of them. I go all the way out there. The one his clerk calls the cops on me. Cops are like, He didn't do anything wrong. So they're not all unreasonable. We have, a systemic corruption, uh, manipulation of our infrastructure, and a willful sabotage. It's not all Washington. Your union should be competing for corporate, the clerks union, not the campaign fund. The legislature should have interns, the turnover like you've never seen. They should have interns coming and going. The hospitals have interns. All the interns, they get hot and cold running interns, and doctors working 24-hour shifts, sleeping in the office. They're not subject to the same standards. And the war on terror represents a holy war on two fronts. And the reason they renewed the National Defense Authorization Act the way they did, with a big price tag and a hullabaloo, and they constructed a supplemental national security auxiliary, is because we're being colonized. They don't want to help the cops, or they wouldn't have done it the way they did. They want to watch us lose a holy war. I had to lie about the whole damn thing. I didn't know I was a witness. I didn't even know they burned my unit after I left. Act like they forgave me, so they must have been in on it. I wasn't in on it. Can Goodyear help me out here? Like, I was on the clock. Where's the IRS? SEC? There's money changing hands? Can I get my cut? The people who knocked down 3 towers with 2 planes called us liars. Pretty sure. Just because they're not represented on the land doesn't mean we can't. Council on Foreign Relations act like I'm hiding. I ran away. A coward and a liar and duplicitous and a bloodthirsty predator and violent doorman and not too shabby. High profile venues. Not without incident, but for the most part. I try to be a good boy, and sometimes I failed, and I play for points. I'm not a violent man. Train, be violent. Call me crazy all you want, Grandma. First, do no harm, you're not a doctor. Mess with me on the street. Anybody got time for that? I see it coming. I'm not stupid. Act like I'm stupid because I didn't fall for it. Whatever satisfies your budget item. Mess with me at work. You ain't never seen crazy. It's my time to shine. I'm trying to move up in this establishment. I go to this little joint I heard about. I wanted to scope the place out. And I didn't even have time to get a drink. Before I even found the manager, there's an incident. 2 or 3 people and about 7 yellow shirts just dog pile up, and it's just peace. It's peaceful again. And I said, that's an outfit. I could be a part of this, but I mean, I'm VIP. I'm in a 3-piece with a tie, and I got tourists coming up to me, asking me if I sell coke, acting like I'm some kind of disappointment. I got colleagues acting like I let them down. I have no reason to think something's afoot. I don't know what that's about. This doesn't, ring a bell. So here we are, 15 years later. Come to find out. As soon as I left for the Army, as soon as I started waylaying all my personal affiliations, a young lady was crippled because Somebody's placing bets, and backing his bets is a vice motive. There has to be vice. Vice has to be involved. Otherwise, they probably shouldn't have been involved. There has to be a reason they were involved. It has to be like, oh yeah, it'll turn into. There has to be a reason that he fled from vice, and now our children's lives are their 9 to 5. So, having satisfied their budget item, they go about their business, and she ends up crippled. Now it's like, he did what? It didn't happen when I was there, and I didn't forget it. Forgive me to my face. Part of the whatever they call it, the Cocaine Importation Agency. I don't know if they're aware. They're probably aware. I'm not a source. I didn't invent that. An earner is a stayer. I'm on a mission. I'm seeing to the health and prosperity of my normies. Having been threatened on their behalf, my intention is to it's one of accountability. So, having satisfied that, people acting like I got used to it. I think it's been 15 years, and the only reason I'm looking into it now is because people were threatened. I'm a doorman. Like, threat me on the clock, and you might be another 25 cents an hour. Threat me out here, it's like, I don't know. Have we done business? Not to mention, I got zombies coming up to me, even pretty ones, acting like they know us. Well, don't say you know us if you didn't know me when I knew them. They wanted me to know you. They didn't introduce us. There's a gay mafia out here. It's called NAMBLA. Like, the Grateful Dead will never take me alive. Anonymous? Put me through the FBI? I don't know what the hell it was about. I know certain parties are under some impression. And I mean, as long as they're under that impression, they're not part of my concern. So, pursue the priority, rule that out. Now, like, okay, I know that certain events happen. I don't care what your agenda is. This is, first off, it's a complaint. What would be more natural? What would be less suspicious to a perp, the subject of an investigation? How do we not tip him off? Take the report, follow up on that investigation, see if maybe that leads somewhere. Like, I obviously didn't forgive that. I wouldn't be here. Act like you forgave me for some terrible shit I don't even know about yet. The Clails were not there at church that day. Cajuns. Okay, so you relax your face. Catholics, I've never been party to any damage to the Catholics. To ignore or testify or witness or forgive, I confess faithfully to the limit of my awareness of any direct involvement with what was asked at the time, and that happened when it happened. And if you weren't party to it, you should be aware that you've been lied to. Okay, so I don't deny my coping mechanisms of having been poisoned with nerve agent, and my anxiety and grief. But that, you got nothing better to do? I don't bow to inferior Muslims. He's not Christian. 40 days, 40 nights. So 15 years. At the time of the alleged false witness, the Aryan Nation, we're not affiliated. I hadn't been active on social media for months at least. I didn't have a computer at my domicile for a couple of years. So it's nothing to do with that. Somebody saw me getting ready to put the hurt on somebody expensive and said, who the fuck is this guy? Look me up. I got a name. I got flags. So try them and justify their mistake. And now they get loose about it. And the things that they do, they got to follow up on. There's going to be repercussions. Because, I mean, I've not had the advantages of normal health, normal community. Act like you can take away somebody's reason for living. Tell her I cheated on her. And wait till I leave town. Forgive me for some other terrible shit. Till when I'm 14, my first real, like my first love, the girl that I would have married if that was the social norm. But you know, after our first all-nighter, and it wasn't consummated, but try as we might, I look forward to trying again. They tell her I cheated on her. Like, you tell somebody's girlfriend he cheated on her so you can fuck her, that's rape. Anonymous is not a new thing. Why I'm focused on Turkey. This is how it works. You have certain freedoms. Like, I don't care if you're a Christian or not. This land, this general direction, this flock is protected. We go and eliminate deniability. We make holy the source of corruption. And now the flock has the capacity to kosher itself. But it's not a religion, because they go and they say, my name's whatever and I'm an addict, and tell their story. So there's a search for not the truth. That's what they do. They talk about their experiences, but it's anonymous truth. The ferryman's not being paid. The anonymous graveyard does not exist. They're hiding our lost lambs from our laws on our land. They're liberating our souls on our land. I have my birthright. When I was 3 years old, I stomped the shit out of some deadbeat's kid, and it was justified. It was downright impressive. It was decisive. It was conclusive. It was over. I should have got a Medal of Valor for all the fucking trouble it caused. When I was 18, there was a party. We left. There was an incident. We came back. Nobody said they killed him. I'd have been like, holy shit. They couldn't say they killed him, because there would have been, like, all they said was, he got his head stomped into a cactus until his eyes went crossed, puked, shit his pants. And, you know, he's in a better place. He better be, for all the trouble it caused. I have never engaged in the cocaine trade for subsistence or profit. I've never indulged. It has never appealed to me. Maybe it just doesn't click the same if you got nerve agent. I had brain damage. I did stupid stuff after that. I mean, it was bad for years. At the peak of my physical fitness in the military, running a 14-minute 2-mile I still, some days, just couldn't pull it together. And if you miss formation, it's the same as if you just crash for a few more hours. So I got a couple insubordinations, but they weren't like willful insubordination. It wasn't like you could just say something to my face and I'd be like, let me think about it. I was trained. I was just disabled. I wasn't drinking on duty. I had some knucklehead drill sergeant from another unit come over trying to cause trouble for our squad because I don't know. It be in his bonnet. Maybe they brought in a ringer. Maybe it was a setup. Maybe they just made it too easy for me to go get a drink. I wanted to see if I'd come back in time for taps or get loaded like I did. Try to sneak in like I had been. It was a 10-month course. 7 months into it, I just couldn't. I couldn't hack the curriculum, the way that we were taught. I have chronic fatigue, chronic dehydration, vertigo. So I reclassed, and it was a little rough at first learning my job, but once I did, we'd all been better off if I just went to Bosnia and died. I could have gone to Bosnia and smoked some terrorist, and now win or lose, come home and there's no argument that I didn't cut my teeth for the KKK to be acting foolish. Like, I don't have to commit human sacrifice to satisfy the one true creator of heaven and earth. I don't have to kill somebody. Having done so, it has to be kosher. And the ferryman gets paid. So if it's not going to be paid in my ass, right? So I have to investigate. I have to know what crime I'm accused of, so I can cooperate with the investigation. You'll say I didn't cooperate with the investigation when it was baloney. Act like I'm under some obligation 15 years later to dive on the first excuse you send my direction, like I'm trying out for your outfit. The sacrifices, the damage, the collateral, the blowback was unjustified. Okay, somebody did a bad thing and forgave me for it. And there's a line. There's willful ignorance, and then there's ignorance, and then nobody could possibly be this fucking stupid without years of planning. Central, is this your baby? Whose kid is this? Have you seen this child? From a monastic crusade, I mean, it being a holy war and all, I assure you it's a holy war. From a monastic perspective, it's Harvard's baby. Harvard's going to be the proud father of a very expensive baby. And their arrangement that they had that lets them do this kind of bullshit, control our government for term after term after term. I mean, you're looking for God, the God of the Democrats and Republicans. It's Harvard. I know where it goes to, and according to the tenets of their faith as I know them, they'll be happy to facilitate the satisfaction of my vendetta at Harvard. We have a vendetta we share. That's why I'm so pissed, because this could have been wrapped up decades ago. As long as the flock is not made whole, as long as I'm not aware of the fulfillment. Like, I don't care about your forgiveness. I don't want the Muslims' forgiveness. Okay, they weren't Muslims. I don't need the Muslims' forgiveness. I'm Irish. I would have never required protection had it not been for the protection. I would have never found out I was protected had my protection not run out. I would not. I was supposed to go find out about it in hell. I would have never known I was molested. Somebody forgave it. That's the only qualification. I didn't forgive it. The Irish didn't forgive it. The Italians were blamed. The alma mater flipped to a narcotics conspiracy that caused the domino effect. It put the badge behind a Philistine publisher, a media church. Now it's got a badge on it, so it's not protected by the same customs regarding the stage. Now we have like a bad racket. Things have become precedents, and economics being what they are. Like, you're not going to intimidate me for some religious. Like, I have vendettas of my own. You want me to take up that cross too? I tried to turn this thing in 2016. The religious assertion fled the field. You're not fatherless. Okay. There's no more furor to blame all this misbehavior on. If you oppose us, you lose. It's no longer the allegation that the Mexicans are stealing our jobs is being made by illegal immigrants. When you hear me refer to the archangel, I refer to Michael, the archangel of justice, who vanquisheth the deceiver with a flaming sword. When I die, Michael will weigh my heart against my deeds. I will look him in the eye, having lived my life in such a way. I'm sorry you were under some kind of impression, whatever it was. I didn't forgive it. I didn't lie to you. I know how it works. They're converting our people by the sword to their agenda, and they didn't get me. I sought relief through alternative means. My doctor and my priest are both afraid of Medicaid. I mean, not my proudest moment to begin with, so why wouldn't I debase myself to satisfy in order to debunk any religious assertion? Because now that I know that's what they're about, I can eliminate deniability. There's no religious assertion. I don't take pleasure in humiliating myself, but I'm not proud of this life. I've never had anything to cling to but my oath of service, so I give a shit about the groupthink, heathen scandal factory. They're an enemy to the Constitution and the individual personnel, their lives and livelihood, security, safety, efficacy. If nothing else, their paycheck. I took a dive. I had to take a dive. I mean, I had to take a dive to get in. My sword cutteth both ways. For the Constitution and the people on the land whose protection it guarantees. You know, bring Jackson into it. I didn't even know we were related. I would have never figured it out if I wasn't a student of religions. So if you want to play that game, Prince Charles abdicated. So I don't know what Justin Trudeau's claim to sovereignty is. Just my antagonist makes him a king. Australia, you have a king I don't know about? You hear? Richard Branson. The threats, the insults, all the... I don't know Justin Trudeau. His policies don't officially affect my order of sovereignty here for these people officially. He's just has the privilege of being the logical object of my affections. Canadians in Canada, I can't get enough of. The Canadians down here, obviously, we're not welcome. I have never... This is not the willful ignorance. This is the genuine article. The flock has to be made whole. Worthiness has to be demonstrated. The Catholics have to be brought into the fold. Otherwise, whatever we do, we're not going to litigate against the Catholics on my behalf, because I know what happened. I know how it works. I know where the money is. I know where the offshore account is. To the Catholics, being not beholden to their forgiveness or asserting any authority over their policy, I am worth more than your whole outfit at this time. I never claimed to be a Christian priest. The assertion that I did was convenient. It was an opportunistic misinterpretation, justifiable mistake. It wasn't it wasn't faithful, that assertion. You would have to be a fool to mistake that $5 acrylic or nylon, whatever it was, a smock, for a genuine cassock, or even a intentional misrepresentation. It was one night I wore that thing. One picture with a zombie and a clown. There was no air of authority. I have never claimed to be a Christian priest. A Christian priest is limited in the substance of his gospel. They're protected. I don't need your protection. I'll be doing the protecting. Our enemies manipulate public perception, and they exploit the people's naivety and distrust which they have sown. And I assure them that the political competition, the conflict, the brotherly discrepancies between branches does not constitute industrial sabotage, let alone international pharmaceutical industrial sabotage. Yeah, that's one. That's a can of worms. You do not. You ain't got. No, not. First, do no harm. You're not a doctor. First off, so that's your religion now. It's fighting words. For purposes of interpretation, your honors, Babu, the Hindu temple, is the closest thing we have among the major religions of the world, the modern world, to what wrestle with Ares for the glory of the one true creator. I assert the authority of the angels of Asclepius. I have never engaged in the cocaine trade. Somebody justified a mistake years after the atrocity. I can tell you, I owe no a filial obligation. I mean, the ferryman was paid, but there was no confession. It was go across the street, come right back. It wasn't my money. It wasn't my, etc. You can have them all. Flip to it. Give a shit. Pardon our French. Cocaine will not be after I break ground, after I satisfy the vendettas, the crosses I carry. Cocaine will never have been forgiven by me. Florida doesn't like it, grow bananas. You want to be Protestants? Grow bananas. Put your money where your mouth is. Act like you mean it. This is why Gandhi spun salt, just to prove these people have no religion. I will not, if I fail, it will be, I'll confess. Okay? But if I sin, I'll repent. Do not take up the vendetta on my behalf by virtue of me being stupid. I require no protection other than the federal government. I'm not engaged in any illicit activity which I cannot justify. I do not consent to the enforcement of any illegal investigation or the robbery, rape, entrapment, framing, or forgiveness of any. So, I mean, due process, if you intend to argue that I was party to the investigation or a witness or testified, I've never forged anything. I've never given false witness. I was on trial. I spoke the words I was told to speak, just not the ones my lawyer told me to speak. So it wasn't a business proposition. I wasn't making a wish. I don't know if the judge was party to the subsequent, but somebody act like we were in on it and put it on the cavalry, and it turns out it was that judge, if anything, where the lanes were crossed. Everybody else, 15 years later, I find out this betrayal is ostensibly something to do with me. You couldn't find me working the door of Planet Rose, the VIP. I got a suit and tie. I look like the hitman guarding a glass champagne case full of trust fund kids. You couldn't find me. So many opportunities squandered. So many potential friendships sabotaged. And so many needless sacrifices over the years. No way to connect them to myself. I can't work a steady job to establish the credentials to move up in the world, make investments without getting sick because somebody asked me. Now this sounds like conspiracy theory. All of a sudden, like the rest of it, perfectly logical. But yeah, at this point, my theory is, having seen him in action on a couple occasions, that I worked somewhere for a few months. The IRS leaks my protection, and some lobbyists, whether or not they're connected to the Ashishin, the outsourced infrastructure managed by Gandhi's not a Hindu, so those cops are Muslims. I don't know where to get in coke. I wouldn't know who to sell it to. It's like I don't want to do any coke, so now I have a health problem. I don't know how they do it. I just know that for the past 8 centuries, there's a reason it keeps getting. The Dark Age is expanding in the world. They steal our stuff and bludgeon us with it until we forgive it, and then we can have it back. Now we can use it. We can hold it again. Nah. So after 3 months, I smoke a joint with somebody. It's customary, not a dick. But now it turns to cocaine, and I don't know nothing about it. And now it's like rudeness, weirdness, cold shoulders, and unrequited love. And no way to connect the dots, because when I go for a bike ride and I go past the victim's house, they're having a birthday party. Come on in. Get loaded, eat too much, puke in the yard, try to be a good guest, clean it up, go crash in the bathroom because it's mostly girls, so I don't want gentlemen. Plus I might need to vomit again. See where I'm coming from? Like, I was given no explanation, no reason to suspect that had anything to do with me. I remember the incident where she asked me to, she didn't ask me, she said she had to do it. She said it in such a way as to imply that I should help, but I wouldn't know where to begin. You want my help? I'm not that kind of doctor. I'll get you some weed, or I'll kick his ass. The weed will cost. Weed costs money. Otherwise, come from good parentage. I'd be happy to kick his ass, my lady. A damsel in distress. All this could have been avoided. Instead of cucking the guy. Which, I mean, gentlemen or not, like, I wasn't. Our society instills this perception in the youth that it's normal to have a new girlfriend every week and a couple of funny episodes and then a different one next week. And like, when Anonymous tells your first love that you cheated on her, which turns out to be anyway 007. And now that's your first experience, combined with a nerve agent injury and years of just should have been betrothed. They claim to be betrothed, but the guy was, I guess, dipping his pen in company ink, 23 with a 15-year-old, and this was just her. I don't know if somebody put her up to it or not. The bottom line is, I never sold coke. Like, I tried it just to see what it smelled like, but I didn't inhale. So, the investigation satisfies its involvement, its legal, right, obligation, and then it moves on to the bigger things. And then the moment it turns away, our enemies exploit that lane. And the way it comes back, it doesn't have to come back over the same bench. Now, if your apparatus is not community oriented, you have no way of knowing it even happened, let alone a way to associate it with your prior investigation. Now this would be a chance to make a buck. We're here. This would be a recovery, but instead, they're just exploiting our people. They're undermining our economy, our currency, our sovereignty, and it has cost us our hegemony. They're calling us liars. They're calling us crazy. Calling us homos. Well, okay, so she gets crippled for life. PKE, phenylketonuria. They laced her up. I mean, whether or not she was violated sexually, that in the eyes of our mandatory alliances, the tenets of their faith, is a form of rape. It means that she was dominated. She submitted. The will of Allah was, she was forgiven for now. She was reminded that she's a slave. That's what happened. And our obligation is vendetta. So revenge was taken against my sister with not a word to my face. First do no harm or do not invoke the authority of the angels. No taxation without representation. I was 3,000 miles away, and I was denied the opportunity to answer any, I was not allowed to know I was implicated because they're molesting little kids. And I mean, first there's the diplomatic thing. They act like it was the Olympics. Like we conducted a holy war and certain decisions were made for diplomatic purposes so they can do their little under the table. But it was diplomatic enough. No harm was done. No reason to look back on it and be like, this is because of that. Connect the dots or whatever. No, it was when I was 7. It's called a marital rape. And you think that means when a husband rapes his wife, forces her to have sex with her. What it means, the reason there's even a terminology for it, is that raping someone means you're married. So we're being exploited by failure to wipe out some godless theocratic temple on the other side of the planet to the last man, because I was denied the opportunity to grant his holy duty to die on his pilgrimage. He didn't explain. All he did was describe the obligation of his faith. There was no mention of why. And these idiot doctors were so sure that I would never survive, let alone find out and come kick their asses, that they lied to me. I have a vendetta against that guy, not Donald Trump. You have a vendetta against Donald Trump. So what do? Do we go commit genocide? We get this phony religion on the other side of the planet, probably protected by Islam, because there's no faithful, there is but one Allah, Muhammad's his prophet. Well, guess what? Gandhi's a prophet. Mandela's a prophet. You got a whole other temple over there look just like you, Muhammad. So we do not recognize marital rape for political purposes. We're not obligated to satisfy any assertion of diplomatic immunity, protection, or penalty without probable cause, reasonable suspicion. You can't ban rendition, waterboarding. I mean, without suspending powers of arrest. There are implications for practicing CPR. But you want to act like you did it because you were scared of me or because you hated me, or whatever, you can't ban rendition. I said, see how that works? The English, ostensibly, sent some thespian over here to pretend he got waterboarded and say, oh, it's torture. He'll never be able to look at another drop of water. Imagine that. He has PTSD. You can't take him within 1,000 yards of a beach. His life is ruined. He'll never enjoy it. He'll be dehydrated until the day he dies. He's scared. He can't take a sip without reliving the nightmare. That's what torture means. One look tells you he did not get a drop of water up his nose. I don't know if he was here on behalf of the British via Australia or Canada, or whether the British had a say in the matter. 007 definitely got his. Okay? You can't ban waterboarding because I said so. You're not going to take our tanks, send us to war for 20 years with no armor, establish a surveillance state, ban waterboarding so you can watch us lose a holy war. You're not going to take our money. You're not going to disarm us by virtue of our we're not fit. So the logical assertion would be the CDC is a biological weapon. The currency, the fiat, is backed in human sacrifice via Roe versus Wade, and furthermore, child molestation via Sigmund Freud, the gay mafia, NAMBLA. So I am here to prosecute international pharmaceutical industrial sabotage. And if Babu doesn't fulfill his vendetta, because see, I carry a cross for Kali, I expect faithful representation. I have to. It's not idolatry. Babu has to fulfill the vendetta of the scorned mistress, the faithless, the infidel husband. It's not the infidel, faithless messenger stealing our mail and making it look like it was our, some misunderstanding. And they're not going to stop until we fulfill whatever. Muhammad could keep his forgiveness. Kali will bear fruit. The ferryman will be paid. I'm not a Hare Krishna. I don't bow to Babu. I greet him as a human, like Alexander before me. So, somebody lied to the Catholics. Figure, we have to we have to bring them into the fold by demonstrating worthiness. Babu supports my assertion on behalf of the federal government. The investigation, I told IG that it was performed without orders on behalf of CID. Well, that's not quite that. I figured it would be useful. It would be expeditious at the time. In fact, the investigation was performed on behalf of myself because the KKK, I don't lie to the Catholics. I didn't forgive it. I'm a druid, so persecute the druids if you can find them. But the Catholics have suffered enough. Druidism is not a matter to be undertaken lightly. We're not supposed to admit that we're druids because Rome slaughtered the druids, but I am a Templar, and not a good one because I have no Catholic community. I've never had. I've taken communion a couple times, but I've never had filial link, had that connection with the community where I could be taken under wing, where I could be, where I could perform penance. None of that. I don't know the customs of the Catholic Church. I can tell you a thing or two about Druidism. I don't have have to. I'm not supposed to. But the Hippocratic Oath, like I was saying, figured, man, we're Greek. If Rome hated us, they got theirs from the Vikings, but there were others among us who disagreed, and of those who disagreed, none are left. No affiliation. Our enemies made it look like Michael Jackson was a child molester. Well, it turns out he wasn't, so he had a vendetta. Well, he did what a bard does, and the heathen zombie apocalypse took matters into their own hands, and it got ugly. Well, so he was punished for years and years, and either the Grateful Dead killed a princess because he was wrongly accused, or because he's their child molester. What's it gonna be, pal? Your Nazi fled the country. There's no excuse for that. Running out of excuses, Washington. Got your asses kicked. You're welcome. We're here to make an honest woman out of Washington. We do that by ultimately the result, the intended, expected, having satisfied the vendetta, having delivered Harvard, the daddy, to the promised land, Princeton will be represented in the legislature, or maybe one day the Supreme Court. Originally, I made overtures to Yale, divinities, tried to get some cooperation in sanctifying the foundation of a pagan Baptist system, so that the prison industry had an excuse. Try to give them an out. No pushback there. Do I need my grandfather's alma mater? So I sent a Hippocratic Oath to the Pope. Presumptuous? Maybe. Whether or not it was received, whether or not it was delivered or received or answered, whatever. If he ever gets it, I'll have done my best. And that, Your Honors, is the story of Charles Buckley, Levantine University.